Hello and thank you so much for watching. Today I'll be talking about some important photographers that worked during the silent film era here in Los Angeles. Still portraits were an important marketing piece both for selling the picture to the public and for the actors to promote themselves. Beatrice Dominguez was lucky enough to sit for many of these photo artists, and if you're looking for a great read, in this video I'll be referencing the book Still by David S. Shields. It's full of wonderful information and beautiful portraits that I highly recommend. Stay tuned because I'll be showing you some never-before-seen still portraits of Beatrice from many of these photo artists, such as my favorite, Jack Freulich. But first, if you haven't already done so, please click that subscribe button and click the bell so that you're notified of all video uploads. As we know, more than 80% of all the silent films are now lost. And although some continue to pop up now and again, for many, all that remains as records of these films are the production stills and the still portraits that these photo artists took of the actors. In early cinema, many would-be hopefuls sought out photographers for hire to take stylish portraits in hopes they would be discovered, since many of these portraitists were the gatekeepers to the industry. In the early 1910s, portraiture remained in the hands of the independent studio photographers. One of these studios was known as Empire Studios here in Los Angeles. Empire was owned and operated by brother and sister Guy and Layla Grimshaw. Empire had 3 locations in downtown Los Angeles. Many of their photos were stamped with the location in the lower corner of the photograph. In 1914, Empire produced photographs of Beatrice in costume playing the role of Red Fox in the Vitagraph film The Seagull, which she starred alongside Miss Myrtle Gonzalez. Another popular portrait studio here in Los Angeles was Carpenter, LA. Carpenter, LA was owned by J. Cyrus Carpenter. In 1912, a fire broke out, destroying his entire studio, including his negative archive. By 1913, he rebuilt, but he decided to sell the business to Richard Greer Marsh. Marsh issued his images with Carpenter, LA inscribed in the negative. Marsh favored lucid, featureless backgrounds. Gestures were natural, no extravagant poses, no staged postures. Faces smiled faintly, intelligent, and composed. These lightsome, airy portraits enjoyed intensive vogue during the 4 years following World War I. And once the vogue passed, Marsh decided to close his studio, and he retired in 1924. Each photographer had their own individual style and flair on how they chose to shoot a person at their sitting. No 2 photo artists were alike. The use of lighting and camera angles is what helped to distinguish the true artist from the novice. One thing all photographers had in common was the fight for recognition. Everybody wanted to be seen. And with reputation came the right to publish one's name on the image. Earning the right to publish one's name on that image allowed for portraits to be placed in newspapers or magazines for pay, or in hopes to be contracted by motion picture production companies. In 1919, Jack Freulich, who previously was employed in New York for Underwood & Underwood, accepted an offer by Carl Laemmle to come and work for Universal. Jack was the first person to be hired by a studio to lead the department of its own in-house production still and production department. In early American cinema, it was the production companies that had the names. Next came performers, and then directors, and by the 1920s it was cinematographers. It took granting of name credit to lure Jack Freulich to Universal. He would be the first salaried motion picture still photographer to have his signature appear on almost every image that he produced. Jack and Beatrice roughly arrived at Universal around the same time. Beatrice was lucky enough to sit for Frulick several times while at Universal. Portrait sessions sitting in Jack's gallery were often accompanied by classical music, to give the actors sitting for him the ambiance needed to strike the mood and attitude that he wanted to capture. He always opted for capturing facial expressions. His best work was marked by an absence of props and a lack of busyness. Backgrounds were often plain, either dark or textured by lighting, or simple fabric backdrops were used. Jack Freulich described portraits as selling tools for stars and films as well, sent out to newspapers, magazines, and to fans. Speaking of fans, here is a letter written from a fan asking Beatrice for her autographed picture, along with one of my favorite portraits taken by Jack Freulich that Beatrice signed to a fan, but apparently it never made its way there. And if you happen to be hearing Jack Freulich's name for the very first time today, well, he's pretty well known for photographing some of the most famous faces in all of Hollywood. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Feel free to like and share this video. Bye.